our religion and our obligations, which is we were not told this before, that it is critical, not even important, it is critical for Muslims to embark on a life-long journey of studying the Quran. And they keep emphasizing studying because until yesterday, I was in a call with someone in Tunisia. People are still focusing on memorizing, and they're very happy, and they're putting a lot of efforts in memorizing even in a traditional way. And the teacher would be asking them, can you pull certain sentences from which surah or from which verse, which I don't know why, because these are searchable now. You can pull them on your phone or anywhere. Why people will put effort, and they do that at the expense of studying the Quran. So studying the Quran, and it's not by any means what we're doing here is not meant to be comprehensive or complete. It is just initiating a discussion. Hopefully, we all get to the point where we do this on our own, individually and collectively, and we get to the point where we always have something to exchange when we meet, because each one of us is studying certain parts and have something to share, and of course have something to learn. That's not the case now by any means, but that's how it should be. So again, removing the obstacles. It's not true that Quran can be understood only by scholars, and it's not true that Muslims do not have or do not need to study the Quran because they already know their deen, and that's a very, very big mistake. Has to be fixed. Studying the Quran, basically also doing it the right way and for the right reason. Studying the Quran for guidance, so that you will not become focused on the quantity, because if you focus on reward, you will be focusing on quantity. But studying the Quran for guidance will make you someone who is curious to understand, because this is a letter from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to you. Yes, it came to everybody, it did not come to you directly. Make sure that we're all muted, please. It did not come directly to you. It came through Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not. It did not come only to you, but to everybody. But you should take it as such. When you study the Quran, you should take it as a personal letter from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to you. That's why the scholars say, well, if you want Allah to speak to you, read the Quran, study the Quran. Studying for guidance, if we do it right, then we should always be on a continuous improvement path, because there is no passage in the Quran that you read that will not add something to you and to your life, and will not remind you of something, will not draw your attention of something. And that's even if you know it inside out, even if you memorize it, you will every now and then you come across verses that as if you're reading them for the first time. That's the beauty of this great book that Muslims are missing. Unfortunately, they don't know they're missing. And if we want, I know that the crisis of Muslim world and Muslims is very complex and multi-dimensional, but believe me, if we want to really summarize it in one sentence or summarize the solution, if we only have choice to choose one thing, it is this. Probably in conjunction with the love of Allah, knowing Allah and studying the Quran, that can fix so many things, because knowing Allah will lead to loving Him. Loving Allah will make you very motivated to be your best and to live up to the divine expectations, which are very high. And studying the Quran will really keep you always on track, and will keep you from going into any exits, and always will reveal some areas of weaknesses in you that need work, or some areas of strength that need to be consolidated and need to be preserved. That's why I say if we do it right, we should emerge from every session with the Quran, no matter how short it is, even if it is one verse. We should emerge from the Quran, from that session, with a homework. You discover something good that you have, so you want to make sure that you preserve it. You discover something good that you don't have, you're going to start immediately working on it to acquire it. Or you, vice versa, you discover something bad that you don't have, so you pay attention to keep away from it. Or you discover something that is bad, that you have it, and that should be your homework. All right, we're continuing with the Surah Al Imran, and again, it shows you, and also I need always to remind all of us of this, that Quran is the main purpose of the Quran is to get you to know Allah, because Quran is a book of Tawheed and book about Allah mainly. And Quran is a book that will make you realize your mission, realize the expectations, figure out and understand the profile of the good Muslim, or the expected Muslim, or the Muslim with whom Allah is pleased. And then Quran will give you some tools and instructions and the motivation and the incentive to meet those expectations and to match that profile, the profile of the mission-driven Muslim who is in this life in the pursuit of the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ready to do whatever it takes to fulfill the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to understand and fulfill the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are continuing with the first part of Surah Al Imran. Again, Surah Al Imran divided into two major parts. First one is about Maryam, mainly story of Maryam and Isa, Mary and Jesus, and the second part is about the Battle of Uhud. These are the main topics of Surah Al Imran. I think we ended, or we closed last time at verse 50. ومصدقا لما بين يدي من التوراة ولأحل لكم بعض الذي حرم عليكم وجئتكم بآية من ربكم فاتقوا الله وأطيعون. طيب. So verse 50. Verse 50 again, Surah Al-Imran. Verse 50, I have come to confirm the truth of Torah, which preceded me, and to make some things lawful to you, which used to be forbidden. I have come to you with a sign from your Lord. Be mindful of Allah, obey me. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونَ. I'm going to stop a little bit on this فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونَ because it was repeated in several places in the Quran. So, confirming in one verse, see how loaded the Quran is. In one verse that is not really long, says that I'm confirming Torah. So that confirms an important part of our religion and understanding of Islam, which is that all prophets are coming with the same message because they're coming from the same source. So everybody confirms previous messengers, even though the details were tailored to certain nations and certain time. In this particular case, the relationship between Torah and Injil is very unique because Torah continued to be valid and the Bible was just spiritual awakening and revival, with the rules are still the rules of Torah with minor modifications. So Jesus came with those miracles that we talked about them last time. A lot of miracles. I mean, it's a string of major, very convincing and compelling miracles, and addressing Bani Israel, telling them, I'm confirming Torah, which is your book, and I'm gonna alleviate your burden. I mean, there are things that were forbidden before, I'm gonna make them lawful for you. And I brought all these miracles. وجدتكم بآية من ربكم. طيب, the logic conclusion, فاتقوا الله. Just be mindful of Allah. وأطيعون. وأطيعون, this was repeated on behalf of several prophets, because one thing that especially applies to Prophet Muhammad especially, is that Prophet Muhammad was not, by the way, and applies probably to every prophet, because it came in the context of Noah and then now Isa and etc. The prophet is not a male man. Yani. He's not someone who just come and deliver the message and go. Yani. No, the prophet is has more roles than this. Every prophet, and especially Prophet Muhammad who built community, but again applies to every prophet, was meant who has two other roles that sometimes we tend to neglect, which is one, to be a role model, and has to be taken as a role model, which means the standard against which you compare yourself, you evaluate yourself. And third is a leader. Leader, of course, the context of leadership in Islam is very clear. First of all, you cannot ask us to do something against the guidance, because we know it. It's not a blind following. No. We're limited. لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. Nobody should be obeyed if they ask you to do something wrong, against the teachings of Islam. Second, leadership by consent, of course. We're talking about leadership in general. The prophets are selected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but still they apply the consultation, the great features of leadership in Islam that Prophet Muhammad applied extensively, and they were applied during the Khulafa al-Rashidin, when people were selected by choice. Nobody was imposed or inherited the power. Selected by choice and kept under accountable to the people and in complete transparency. And we know there are several incidents during Khulafa al-Rashidin where the people were exercising this sovereignty over their leaders, that at the end of the day, you are accountable to us. You are not Dallallah fil ard, you're not the shadow of God, or you're ruling us on behalf of God. We selected you and we appointed you, and you are accountable to us. Inna Allah, and by the way, this leadership is something that needs a lot of, because if we want to focus on, if there is also want to point to something out of so many problems that causing Muslims to be in this unenviable situation, is the leadership. We are a leaderless community. So there is a leadership vacuum and leadership mess. Almost for centuries, we did not know leadership. Now we knew dictatorship. We knew people who impose themselves on us. And the moment we see some weakness, we rebel. That's the history of Muslims. The history of Muslims has been oscillating like pendulum between total oppression and totalitarian regimes. And then as soon as there is a weakness, it gets into chaos. And by the way, it's still continuing. We have seen after the Arab Spring, almost same thing. It's still, the pendulum is still swinging between dictatorship and chaos. Why? Because this concept of leadership, we don't know it. It's not in our culture. We are not trained to practice it. even when we came here. Even when we came here, we brought our old ways of groups and cliques controlling mosques and doing those tricks where you see the constitution. It's like any Muslim countries or Arab countries, at least. Like some Muslim countries are democratic. You find the constitution of the mosque or Islamic center very democratic and super democratic. But when you come to the practice, you find it one-man show or one group controlling, and everything happens behind the scene. We did not practice this transparency where leadership by merit, somebody present their vision, they will be asked by people, and there will be open competition. Let's not fool ourselves and no, I don't want it, where people most of the time they want it. Let's make it normalize this process of people being nominated and then present themselves to the public and then being voted in a very transparent way and then held accountable. إن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا صراط مستقيم. This is a very nice touch here because the problem with the nature of Jesus is always blurring the line between the nature of creation and creator. So Jesus were given several identity or several status that fall somewhere in between or combine the two or etc. So here on behalf of Jesus, he's saying, and that's a very strong, because remember that Muslims at that time, Muslims were not Muslims, especially at that time, meaning the Arabs. At that time, they were not there. They were known as the illiterate. So when it comes to the religion, they always are on the weak side vis-a-vis or in the face of the Jews and Christians at that time, because these are the people of the book. These are the ones who know religion. So the followers, the companions, needed a lot of strengthening and validation and comforting and tathbeet and empowering, so that they will not be shaken by the accusation. And we're going to see some of them today, very tricky and very slick tricks to try to shake the confidence of Muslim in their religion. Inna Allah Rabbi wa Rabbukum. Jesus talking, saying that Allah is my Lord and your Lord. So there is no if and then about it. And I'm a creation like you, regardless of how I was created. And Allah is my Lord and your Lord. And he started with himself. Inna Allah Rabbi wa Rabbukum. Fa'buduh. And I'm just a messenger like anybody, like any other messenger before. So worship him. هذا صراط مستقيم. Allah is my Lord and your Lord, so serve him. That is a straight path. فلما حس عيسى منهم الكفر. Of course, when he says straight path, means any deviation from this, any change to this or modification or alteration to this, you're gonna get out of the straight path. إن الله ربي وربكم فاعبدوه هذا صراط مستقيم. فلما حس عيسى منهم الكفر. منهم, of course, بني إسرائيل. فلما حس عيسى منهم الكفر. He presented his message and he sensed that these people are not interested. They are rejecting it. قال من أنصاري إلى الله. قال الحواريون نحن أنصار الله. آمنا بالله واشهد بأننا مسلمون. This أنصار الله, of course, it has nothing to do with any groups that use these names nowadays. You hear those names. We're talking about the word as appeared in the Quran, and I used it in my book as one of the characteristics or one of the illustration of the mission of believers is to be Ansarullah. Of course, Ansarullah, some translation makes it God's helper. Here, Ansari ilallah, but Hawariyun, they answered Ansarullah. When Jesus realized, they still did not believe. Of course, messenger presenting his message, he's sensing a rejection, asking for support. Who is going to help me to fulfill my mission and deliver my message? من من أنصاري إلى الله. مش my followers. أنصاري إلى الله. And I have a mission. I'm delivering it. I'm sensing rejection and opposition. Who is going to be on my side or support me in fulfilling this mission and delivering this message? Who will help me in Allah's cause? This is a beautiful term also, Allah's cause, because that's what you commit to when you become a Muslim. You commit to a cause. Before you were living for yourself. When you decide to become a Muslim, you are changing, switching. You are dedicating yourself and your life to Allah's cause. So you're aligning yourself with Allah's cause. And Allah's cause, it's in your own benefit. You're not going to lose anything. All the benefits is all yours in this life and in the hereafter. It comes through with the blessing and protection and guidance and everything. So when you say you commit yourself to Allah's cause, it doesn't mean that you are going to live miserable life or going to sacrifice anything. Yes, you're going to strive, and that's what is expected, and that's what you're required to do. But all the benefits is yours, including happiness that you're gonna taste and feel that you cannot purchase it with all the money of the world. So when you dedicate yourself to Allah's cause, make no mistake about it, because the prevalent message in our mosques and in our communities is this dichotomy between this life and the hereafter. You have to choose. You want to be successful in the hereafter, you have to compromise and sacrifice. This life is not important. That's not true. That's completely wrong. If you understand this deen properly, you will strive. You might be exhausted physically, but spiritually, and the level of the kind of peace of mind and satisfaction and even gratification that you're gonna find, you will not find it anywhere else. So لن ينال الله لحومها ولا دماؤها ولكن يناله التقوى منكم. Just keep in mind, when the best metaphor is when you slaughter a sheep, you're slaughtering it for Allah, but at the end of the day, you're eating all the meat, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not get any of this. We'll get only that devotion, that dedication, that you're doing it for purely and exclusively for Allah. Man ansari ilallah. This is everybody who has a message in this life and has a mission. Appreciate this word, which is when you call for who helps me, like the same thing that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he was going from one tribe to another during the pilgrimage, was asking who and he sponsor me or protect me, or so that I can deliver my message. Everybody who went through this realized the importance of getting people to support you so that you can deliver this message and you can fulfill your mission. قال الحواريون نحن أنصار الله. This is the word I said. I believe it's an illustration of our mission. I mean, you can consider our mission as Khalifa. You are vicegerent of Allah or deputy of Allah on earth. Our mission is reform, islah, betterment, making things better. It is enjoining that which is good and forbidding that which is evil. It is this engagement or tadafa, civic engagement. It is to be shuhada lillah, witnesses for Allah, qawamina bil qist, advocate for justice. And then in the other verse in Maida was inverted, was qawamina lillahi shuhada bil qist. And here Ansarullah is to be someone who is dedicated to Allah's cause, or dedicated to the support of Allah's cause. Even this Quran is translating it as God's helper. The disciples said, we will be God's helpers. Of course, we have to be careful because Allah does not need help. But the context is to be the helper of Allah's cause, or the servant and the advocate of Allah's cause. The disciples said, we will be God's helpers. We believe in God. We believe in God. Witness our devotion to Him. وَاشْهَدْ بِأَنَّ مُسْلِمٌ. They're asking for Jesus to be witness for this answering the call for this devotion. So Jesus asked for support. Disciple responded, answered the call. So we're gonna be your supporter, or we're gonna be the advocate of Allah's cause. We believe in Allah and witness our devotion. ربنا آمنا بما أنزلت واتبعنا الرسول فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين. ربنا آمنا بما أنزلت واتبعنا الرسول فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين. فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين. طيب. This can be understood whether it's continuing the disciples continuing, or it's directive of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his companions to say this. Let's see how it was translated. Lord, we believe in what you have revealed and we follow the messenger. Record us as among those who bear witness to the truth. Again, it can be understood. This is a very general verse or generic verse. It can be either continuation, that the disciples are saying this, or it can be directing the companions or Muslims to make this beautiful dua. ربنا آمنا بما أنزلت واتبعنا الرسول فاكتبنا مع الشاهدين. Now we go back to the story. ومكروا ومكر الله والله خير الماكرين. ومكروا ومكر الله والله خير الماكرين. As expected, I mean, those who expected to reject, or he felt that they're going to reject, so they started to conspire. The disbelievers schemed, but Allah also schemed. Allah is the best of schemers. وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. This is something very comforting for everybody who is gonna take on the very the huge mission that Allah has assigned to believers. They have to keep in mind that they're going to face a lot of conspiracies and a lot of scheming, but they have to understand, to realize that Allah is on their side, of course, without becoming complacent. إذ قال الله يا عيسى إني متوفيك ورافعك إلي ومطهرك من الذين كفروا وجاعل الذين اتبعوك فوق الذين كفروا إلى يوم القيامة ثم إلي مرجعكم فأحكم بينكم فيما كنتم فيه تختلفون. ومكروا, of course, the people who rejected, they came up with all accusations, starting from the birth of Isa alayhi salam. From the birth of Isa alayhi salam, they came up with all accusations of Maryam. They accused Isa of everything, like very similar accusations to the Prophet, liar, instigator, and in the Roman Empire. It's very typical. They're continuing until now, yani. And the conspiracy did not stop there, so they wanted to crucify him and kill him. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to, let's read the translation first. Allah said, Jesus, I will take you back and raise you up to me. So their plan was to crucify him and kill him. Allah's plan was to take him back and raise him up to him. We should not get into this. There is no point. It's total waste of time to debate what happened exactly, or whether it's we take the verses as is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that their plan was to Allah, and we'll see later on that it did not happen. Their plan did not happen. The plan of Allah is the one that happened, which is that He took him up, He took him back and raised him up to Him. How this happened, this is it's not going to be beneficial to us, and it's not going to help us in any way. I will purify you of the disbelievers. And it's not really, basically, it's a good transition for Jesus. You're suffering from dealing with these believers. I'm gonna really purify you from this kind of environment that you are in. وَجَعَلُوا الَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوكَ this believer to the day of resurrection. I will make those who follow you superior to the disbelievers. So I will make those who follow you. Of course, those who follow Jesus, it's not the Christians only, or it's not. I mean, when as we're gonna see later on, inshallah, with Ibrahim alayhi salam, it's a very a lot of emphasis in Quran on an idea that is very unique and very important, which is that people follow ideas and people follow beliefs. They don't follow an individual, or they don't. It's not who. It's not your race. It's not your ethnicity. It's not. It's who you are, what you do. So الذين اتبعوك, those who followed. We consider ourselves followers of Jesus, of course. There's no question about it. And as we also see later, inshallah, that Jesus himself, like any other prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took an oath from all prophets that every one of them, if he survives until the next one is sent, he has to obey him and follow him. We'll see this later on, had this oath that Allah took from all prophets. So you are followers of Jesus. The moment Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was sent with the last edition, you follow Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, because these are not parallel choices. This is a succession in serious messages from the same source and with the same purpose. يعني. فأما الذين كفروا طيب يوم القيامة فأما الذين كفروا, and please pay attention every time this kufr, except with a few verses, they are very contextual. يعني. 95% or 99% of the Quran, when say الذين كفروا, always refer them to Allah, that He's going to deal with them. فأما الذين كفروا, you don't find this is what you should do to them. فأما الذين كفروا فأعذبهم عذابا شديدا في الدنيا والآخرة وما لهم من ناصرين. Those who reject, I will make the disbelievers suffer severely. Then you will all return to me, and I will judge between you regarding your differences. So that differences, don't try to settle them here. Don't take the law in your hands, yani, or by violence or by force. Differences, I will settle them between you regarding your. I judge between you regarding your difference. Anytime there is differences or punishment or judgment, etc., it's only exclusive to Allah. I will make the disbelievers suffer severely in this world and in the next. That's our job, to convey this, to tell people that your Creator, your Lord, is saying this to you. So just watch out or be careful. But you don't exceed that point. Allah is warning them, and your job is to convey that warning. It's like the job of the messengers themselves. Yeah. Suffer severely in this world and the next. And keep in mind, this suffering in this world, we don't see it. A lot of time we see people who commit a lot of, do a lot of evil and injustice, and they appear to be very happy, and they appear to be, and to the point sometimes we become confused what's going on. First of all, wealth and fame, etc., it's not always a blessing. And second, there are a lot of appearances that can be misleading. A lot of time appearances can be misleading. The appearance of happiness does not always reflect reality, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who created those hearts, says that these hearts, they find peace and tranquility only in the remembrance of Allah. الذين آمنوا تطمئن قلوبهم بذكر الله ألا بذكر الله ألا بذكر الله تطمئن القلوب. فأما الذين كفروا فعذبهم عذابا شديدا في الدنيا والآخرة. Pay attention to this عذاب في الدنيا, because there are verses in the Quran that says you may not see it, but it is happening. That people may be suffering. It's not necessarily true. And of course, the rules in this world, they are not biased towards Muslim or against anybody. Whoever understands this world properly and leverage it, they're going to reap the fruits of it. But when it comes to the true happiness inside, and we know there are societies that are very successful and very and thriving and etc. But at the end of the day, you find a lot of depression and a lot of suicide and a lot of things. وأما الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات فيوفيهم أجورهم والله لا يحب الظالمين. لا يحب, nice touch here again as usual. Quran, Allah will pay those who believe and do good deeds their reward in full. Even though it did not mention, but in other verses say you get even rewards in this life. That you reap the benefits of this great faith and this great relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life. And of course in the hereafter. Wallahu la yuhibbu dhalimin. Allah does not love evil doers. This is for us nowadays. We may read it and pass without paying attention. For the companion at that time, Allah does not love or Allah loves is very important. It's like a wake-up call. Allah does not love. Who are these? Oh, the evildoers, Dhalimin. Pay attention when you recite the Quran and study the Quran, whether it is explicit or implicit, to the parts in which Allah is saying that He's pleased with a certain people, or He's not pleased with a certain people, or like certain category of people, or does not like certain category of people. But it's not category, of course, it's action. Make sure that you check yourself out against these characteristics, whether they are good or bad. فمن حاجك فيه من بعد ما جاءك من العلم فقل تعالوا ندعو أبناءنا وأبناءكم ونساءنا ونساءكم وأنفسنا وأنفسكم ثم نبتهل فنجعل لعنة الله على الكاذبين. طيب. No, I skipped. Sorry. ذلك نتلوه عليك من الآيات والذكر الحكيم. ذلك نتلوه عليك من الآيات والذكر الحكيم. طيب. This is the story. ذلك نتلوه عليك من الآيات والذكر الحكيم. We relate to you, Muhammad, this revelation, a decisive statement. طيب. Now he's going to tell us the lessons, because that's the nature of the Quran. Story and then the lessons. And you have to pay attention to the both, because even in the stories there are a lot of things that can be injected. So ذلك نتلو عليك من الآيات والذكر الحكيم. إن مثل عيسى عند الله كمثل آدم خلقه من تراب ثم قال له كن فيكون. This is the conclusion. All the message, whatever Jesus said, the miracles, everything. Now we're coming to the point. إن مثل عيسى عند الله كمثل آدم, and mentioning Adam, because if you are surprised or misled or confused with the birth of Jesus, the birth of Adam was even more, should be more, it's not more difficult, because it's not appropriate to say something more difficult or less difficult to Allah, maybe in our language or in our eyes. In Allah's eyes, Jesus is just like Adam. So he went directly to Adam. Didn't say like Noah, like other prophets, because the point with Jesus is his creation, his birth, his creation. That's what creating some confusion. So link it to Adam. مثل عيسى عند الله كمثل آدم. And if you are worried and confused because he's born without a father, Adam was from clay. He created him from dust, said to him, be, and he was. If you really have to be, if there is one to be confused about, it's going to be Adam, and more than Jesus. So it's a very strong language, by the way, even though it's not direct, it's indirect, but saying that Allah is be and it is, that's his power, he's free of all needs and doesn't need the children or and then Jesus creation like whom? To tell you it's like all prophets. No, it's like Adam, who is the created from dust. الحق من ربك فلا تكن من الممترين. That tells you how much challenges Muslims were facing at that time, both from the people of the book and especially the Jews in Medina, and from the mushrikeen of Mecca, or mushrikeen of the Arabian Peninsula in general, the idol worshippers. This is the truth from your Lord. Do not be one of those who doubt. If this language is addressing to the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, it tells you that these that they faced tremendous challenges and a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. That's why Quran keep reinforcing their beliefs and refuting the accusations that they are facing. And then so this is, you can call it tathbit, al-haqqu min rabbika. This is the truth from your Lord. So I mean, nothing should shake you. And this is basically, it concluded the argumentations. That's it. Discussion is over. Now this is the truth. And then, okay, if you believe on in what you're saying, let's do this mubahala. They call it mubahala. Mubahala will become clear when we translate the verse. That's it. Don't argue with them anymore. Now, if you're going to continue to arguing, call them for this mubahala. Mubahala is an act. قل تعالى ندعو أبناءنا وأبناءكم ونساءنا ونساءكم وأنفسنا وأنفسكم ثم نبتهل فنجعل لعنة الله على الظالمين. If anyone disputes this with you now that you have been given this knowledge, say, don't argue, don't answer. Say, come, let us gather our sons and your sons, our women and maybe our children and your children, our women and your women, ourselves and yourselves. Mean basically all of us, like Prophet ﷺ and his companion and their families, and everybody who is rejecting this message. Let's gather in one place and pray to Allah. And you say there is no Allah, and you say that we are the Prophet is liar and he's not a messenger, fine. So come, attend this gathering, and let's make this dua to Allah to invoke Allah's rejection on those who are of us who are lying. And we're saying we have the truth, and you are saying that we are lying. Fine. Let's all of us gather and make the dua, supplication to Allah in whom we believe, and so that invokes Allah's rejection or curse on the liars amongst us, or on the liars, on those of us who are lying. And of course they rejected it. That's, at least the Quran did not continue, but they said that they did not accept that, because as says Surah Al-Qasas, وَجَحَدُوا بِهَا وَاسْتَيْقَنَتْهَا أَنفُسُهُمْ ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًّا. Most people, they know the truth. And I always say that the leaders of Quraysh understood Islam as much as the greatest companion, the closest companion to the Prophet, because they mastered the Arabic language. And we know the story of Mughira, Abu al-Walid. He knew that this is not poet. This is something else, because these people, they're masters of the language. It's like the magician of Bani Israel. They realized that whatever Musa did, that's not magic. That's something else. So when you are the master of the field, or the skills, and then you can tell that that's something else. That's not the game that we're playing. That's something else. So the same thing for the Arabs. They knew, but it is the arrogance. It is the greed. It is the interests that they were afraid to lose. It's the privileges. It is that it's not a belief. Now those the lay people, the average people, they follow their leaders. These they reject. They reject the message because they don't even understand it. But their readers, they know this is the truth. But it is out. وَجَحَدُوا بِهَا وَاسْتَيْقَنَتْهَا أَنفُسُهُمْ ظُلْمًا وَعُلُوًّا. Quran comes back to say, of course, they did not respond to this proof. So, إِنَّ هَذَا لَهُوَ الْقَصَصُ الْحَقِّ وَمَا مِنْ إِلَهٍ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ لَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. So it's confirming that this is the truth again. It's like just 2 verses ago, it was الحق من ربك. Now, وإن إن هذا لهو القصص الحق وما من إله إلا الله وإن الله لهو العزيز الحكيم. The whole debate is about Tawheed, so there is a very strong dose of Tawheed. This is the truth of the matter. There is no God but Allah. Allah is the exalted, the decider. And then come back. فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ بِالْمُفْسِدِينَ. فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ بِالْمُفْسِدِينَ. Again, if they turn away, remember I said every time in Quran, with the very few exceptions of some contextual verses, when it comes to kufr and rejection, it always refers them to Allah. If they turn away, know that Allah is well aware of anyone who causes corruption. فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا, your job has ended. After all of this, فَإِن تَوَلَّوْا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ بِالْمُفْسِدِينَ. طيب قل يا أهل الكتاب تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم ألا نعبد إلا الله ولا نشرك به شيئا ولا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله فإن تولوا فقل اشهدوا بأننا مسلمون. This is something that also I'm going to elaborate on this لا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله, because we may read it and we may think of it only in the traditional format of worshipping, where people are worship, meaning making ruku' and sujood. No, it's much more than that. People of the book, say, people of the book, let us arrive at a statement that is common to us all. Let's agree on something. Let's agree on the bottom line. Let's agree on the minimum. And you see the calling them people of the book over and over is basically to making it easier on them. يا أهل الكتاب قل يا أهل الكتاب تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم. And let's go to something basic that all of us should know. Arrive to a state that is common to us all. We worship Allah alone. We worship God alone. Just let's not do anything. Let's not add anything to it. Let's not create around it any confusion. It's we worship God alone. We worship God alone. Very simple truth. We ascribe no partner to Him in any form or shape. And none of us takes other besides God as lords. That's all. We're calling you to agree on this. We worship God alone. We ascribe no partner to Him, and none of us takes others besides God as Lord, as Lord. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, one time he was reciting or probably was revealed, the verse of in Surah Al-Ma'idah, اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله والمسيح ابن مريم. So the verse says that people took their priests and rabbis as Lord or God besides Allah, and Jesus, and took Jesus also. One companion who used to be a Christian said, and look at the people how they talk to the Prophet, which probably nowadays, if a leader in a community will not probably accept this. And talking about Quran, talking about Quran to the Prophet. Say, "Oh Prophet of Allah, no, we never worshipped our priests and rabbis. It never happened." So Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was not offended or angry or anything. He told him, didn't you follow them blindly? The meaning. Basically, whatever they tell you, you do it blindly, you don't double check after them. He said, yes. He told them, that's your worship to them. And I wish Muslims realize a lot of time people pay so much attention on hadith that may not be very relevant nowadays, and who knows about authenticity, and they neglect fundamental hadith like this one. You follow them blindly, that's your worship to them. Just imagine, all of us know how many Muslims have, and Muslim groups who have leaders, they follow them blindly. Says that's your worship to them. لا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله. This concept was emphasized over and over in the surah and in different parts of the Quran, that يعرف الرجال بالحق ولا يعرف الحق بالرجال. You follow the truth. You don't follow people, because people may deviate. People may be wrong. People may commit a mistake. You follow the truth. You take a leader who's going to lead you in the path that you know, or in a path, at least you know its boundaries, and this leader has presented the roadmap to you, and you elected this leader based on that roadmap. So as long you are taking us in that roadmap within those boundaries, with the consultation, fine. But the moment you're gonna take us wherever you want, no, we know where we're heading. So that's very, very important to emphasize, because I mean, as simple as it may get, it's not simple. We have Muslim parties or Islamic parties and Islamic groups of different parts or different ideologies nowadays who encourage their members to follow the leaders blindly, and make it even an integral part of the indoctrination and the ideology, and that's very bad. We're going to have to raise a generation of Muslims who have critical minds, who ask questions, who request to be convinced, who express their opinion freely, who are not going to be intimidated even by a scholar. Yes, within the respect, but respectfully, but going to have that independent, creative, critical mind of someone who's always on the look for the truth, and someone who say, convince me, and what's your evidence, and why not, and why is this, etc. That's not what we're doing now. I would consider that as a sign of disrespect. At least probably here it's better. Muslims here are learning how to raise their children in much better way. But Muslims in different parts of the Muslim world, some of them are still trying the old ways, which is bringing backfiring. It produces a generation of rebellious people, rebellious generation. So every extreme always leads to the other extreme. Action, reaction. You push children to be obedient and suppress their minds and their opinion. The moment they have the opportunity, they go to the other extreme. And we have seen it even here, by the way. We have seen it, and personally, I have seen it here. I have seen cases of children who were apparently raised very well, wallahi, and their parents invested tremendously on them. But because they went to the extreme, or they pushed the limits, not only on religion and your education and your grades and etc. So it's too much. It went the child, when they became teenager, etc. They neglected their study and the schooling and start failing, and the religion and everything. So it was very violent reaction. Yeah. Why? Because we didn't spend the time to raise that minds that do not accept suppression, and to have their minds to be free, and they express themselves freely, of course, in a respectful way. فإن تولوا, again, فقل اشهدوا بأننا مسلمون. I mean, if they reject what we, there is nowhere Quran will tell you do this to them if they reject. It's not your job. Until you deliver the message. If they reject, what is it? That is people of the book. Why do no? We ascribe no partner to him. People of the book, let us arrive at statement that is common to us all. We worship God alone. We ascribe no partner to him, and none of us takes others besides God as Lord. If they turn away, say witnesses our devotion to him. That's it. And we delivered the message. We told you, and we're gonna continue. We're gonna worship him, and it is between you and your Lord or your Creator. I'm going to stop here. The argument, the discussion continue, Ya Ahl al-Kitabi and etc. But this is probably a good place to stop and dedicate time for discussion.
Assalamu alaikum, Doctor.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi
And
wa barakatuh.
everybody. So the issue here they raised lately is just to follow on. I mean, as the Quran mentioned about Ahl al-Kitab, following their leaders or their priests or imams or whatever we call them. We have the same thing. I mean, we have taqleed. These days, if you look at the Muslim Ummah, we are divided into Shafi'i, Hanbali, or even if you mentioned, if you try to criticize one of the historical leaders like Ibn Taymiyyah, I mean, I'm talking about scholars, or Al-Ghazali, or if they said Al-Ghazali, his book has lots of problems like Ihya Ulumuddin, you will find a lot of resistance and people will start attacking you. So I think what we are missing here is the critical thinking. And that we used to have it, and that's Islam came. Islam came with asking people to start think. You cannot worship hijara, stones. And now we came back to the same thing. إِنَّا وَجَدْنَا آبَاءَنَا عَلَى أُمَّةٍ. We found our fathers and ancestors, and we are following them. So I think it's the problem of people making the priority different, or false priorities, like hifz al-Quran, memorization of the Quran is much more important than understanding the message of Islam or the overarching goals. Yes, so the problem is it's not that easy, and it's gonna be it's gonna take, I don't know how much time to change things and put the priorities to the correct scale. Yep.
Allah Jazakallah khair. Yani it's unfortunately a lot of time we find ourselves doing exactly the opposite of what Quran asks us to do, and that's one of them. Yani Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he asks us to do something, he justifies it. That's a training for us on this critical thinking. And I mean, Allah does not need to convince you. Say this is haram, and it tells you why it is haram. Why? Because you want to train. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants our mind to be trained on thinking and asking and reflecting. And like the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, same thing. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam always consulting, never was offended by people expressing different opinion. And the first thing they start with is this revelation? Because if it is revelation, then we're going to take it because that's a revelation from Allah. Yani. And very few instances, almost none. Yani. It's all leaders. Rasul spent all his life as a leader, and other than conveying the message itself. And even in his role as a role model, that's an intersection between leader and prophet, because even as a leader, you have to be a role model. Role model was his part of his duty as a prophet, but also as a leader. So I don't know what happened to our mind to go to the other extreme and exactly do what Quran tells us not to do. There are people before you who developed this clergy and took these and followed them blindly. So don't do it. Yani. You come and do exactly the same thing. Quran tells you that you need to reflect. Allah loves those who reflect and contemplate and يتفكرون. عبادة التفكر, which is to contemplate on how this universe works and how things. And then you abandon that and you go for just following blindly. Quran encourages us to read. The first few verses that were revealed, they were all about reading, knowledge, pen. It's all about knowledge. And then you find we are the least, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, on the average in the Arab world, on the average, the citizen reads 1/4 a page a year. And I found that very shocking, by the way.
That's a year or
a year.
a day?
No, a year on the average. And if it was not for some very addicted, few very addicted leader, it could have been, the average could have been even lower. So 1/4 of a page a year. The average in the United States is 11 books. So you can tell, that's and you go, you find everything Iqra. This institution Iqra, Iqra. We are the Ummah of Iqra. Read, and we're not reading. There is no reading. The numbers say this. There is no reading. It's you put it nicely, Brother Muhammad, at the end. I don't know how much work is needed, but it's tremendous work because the damage is very compounded and very deep, to the point that no patchwork will do it. No remodeling will do it. The Muslim mind has to be remade and rewired. It's like I'm sure I mentioned this example before. When I teach electricity, and the lab has dozens and dozens of wires, and then if the experiment does not work, and then these poor student keep tracing those wires, always my recommendation is just disconnect everything and do it again. It will be much faster and much more probably certain that you're gonna get it right. But if you're gonna keep tracing all these wires, and I see the same thing for the Muslim mind, there was so much damage that there is no amount of patchwork or remodeling can fix it. The same thing for our understanding of Islam, nothing short of rediscovering it. And the sooner the better. The sooner you ditch these versions that you inherited, and then you start that journey. Doesn't mean that you're going to stop praying. Or I'm talking about understanding the mission, maqasid, the tawheed, the relationship with Allah, getting to know Allah, etc. I'm talking about the fundamentals. Studying the Quran. The sooner you start, the sooner you accept that diagnosis, which is, I know, very shocking, and it's not easy to accept, especially that the one that we have is very convenient. It's very convenient. So how can I abandon this and take something that is very demanding? But the sooner you make that transition and you start that journey, asking Allah to lead you to the true Islam, and the true Islam, you will never reach it. You only can come close to it. It's like the truth. You will never grasp the whole truth in your hand. You are always seeking the truth, and you are always getting closer and closer to the truth. Unless we accept this and we embark on that journey of learning our religion, learning the world, learning, very thirsty for knowledge, to understand this world, understand ourselves, understand societies, understand our role, and fulfill it to the best of our ability. The sooner we start that journey, the better. And as long as we don't start it, we're not going anywhere.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Anoushi.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Dr. Anoushi, regarding the points you made and the point that Brother Muhammad made regarding Muslims and our situation, a lot of it has to do with the fact, one factor is Muslims mistakenly believe, from my understanding and my belief, that Jesus is coming back, and we don't have to do anything. Why should we do anything? He's going to come with an army, this and that, and it's ingrained in a lot of the minds of the Muslims, and that has to basically affects their ambitions and motivation to want to change. So I know you did not want to go into the ayah regarding inni mutawaffika wa rafi'uka ilay. I think it's important for us to tell our Muslim sisters and brothers and sisters that this belief that Jesus is coming back has no basis, and it is not true. Because I think the longer they keep thinking, yes, he's coming back, the more they're gonna be like, oh, well, I don't have to do anything.
والله we have a lot of mess يعني that has to be cleaned يعني cleansed or cleared يعني. Most of the hadith about the signs of the day of judgment are not very authentic. So all this talk about Masih al-Dajjal and Mahdi Muntadhar and Isa and all of these, I'm not saying they're right or wrong, or I'm saying it doesn't add anything to us to focus on them. And I see them as distraction. I see all of this for us as a distraction. Like a couple of days ago, I was talking to someone, he said, my dentist, and decided to start focusing on Sharia and thinking about going to Azhar and I mean, during the discussion, these are the kind of issues she was discussing and asking. And are we done with the minor signs? Are we moving to the major signs now? Where are we? And how about Masih? And how about this? And what is this? Do you consider this Sharia? Consider this knowledge? That's totally out of touch. That's not going to benefit you in any form or shape. Whether we ended the minor signs of the Day of Judgment, or we switched, transition to the major, or that doesn't matter for you. That's really distractions that, unfortunately, at certain point in time, there were rulers who, on purpose, magnified these issues to distract Muslims from the essence of their religion. We ended up with the Islamic library, literatures. Just go and enter Fiqh al-Ibadat, for example, or Fiqh al-Tahara. You will find tons of books that were written throughout the history of Muslims about how you make wudu and how you make ghusl, and how you make wudu with this, and how you make the prayer, to pray, how you fix your prayer. Even though this is the part that is the least flexible. It doesn't change with time. It doesn't require any fiqh. It doesn't require any ijtihad. But why these were magnified? Why these research was sponsored, and these books and scholars, so that they will be distracted from focusing on mission, on justice, on maqasid, because they don't want that. And unfortunately, we're continuing the same mistake. Rather than waking up and realizing that we were tricked and cheated by these rulers who tweaked religion towards things that will make this religion as really opium, soothing. When people spend their time discussing these sign of the Day of Judgment and Fiqh al-Tahara, etc., that will make them people very easy to control. Just keep them busy with these things. And there is no difference between them and anybody who is busy with anything else or addicted to anything else. So we have to resist this. We have to be practical. Basically, give me something that is beneficial for me now and relevant for me now, and don't waste my time on issues that do not exist anymore. Firaq, there are some groups, Muslim groups, they don't exist anymore. Or incident like Sunnah and Shia, Ali and Muawiyah, Hussein ibn Ali, who's right, who's wrong, and who did this, and let's investigate. Investigate what? What's the point? What are we going to get out of this? Why don't you just get the lessons and move on. لقد كان في قصصهم عبرة. تلك أمة قد خلت. That's it. These people are gone. They have their record and Allah will deal with them. كسبت لكم ما كسبتم. Worry about you. What's your contribution? What's you're doing? How is your record? But really, let's try to do this, because Brother Muhammad, when he asked about a lot of work, it's a lot of work, yeah, because the closest example I find, you know how they clear oil spill? Just go and look it up later and see how everybody will start clearing a circle and expanding. And that's what we need to do, yeah. And we have an major oil spill, yeah, in the Muslim world, that every one of us has to start clearing the immediate circle and expanding until you meet the circle of your brother or your sister, and then keep moving until we clear this total mess that we found ourselves in. A lot of damage we took, and that's why I hate this word of these people are conspiring against Islam. We didn't leave them any margin to conspire. Now we did all the conspiracy ourselves. We damaged this deen beyond repair. Of course, the understanding, not the religion itself. We created the very mutilated version of Islam that doesn't need anybody to conspire. That's enough for us to keep us in this stagnation forever, yani. Because of all these ridiculous and twisted things, in the minds of Muslims, and until now, those who dedicate their lives to study Sharia and they go to those traditional schools, that's what they're studying. That's what they're studying. It's so hard to absorb, to understand. And until when we're continuing with this? When are we going to wake up? When are we going to wake up that yes, we ended up with mutilated versions of Islam, mushawwaha, and it is beyond repair. Yes, it looks like the Islam of Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but that's only in the appearance, because we pray the same way, we make ruku', Ramadan is fast Ramadan, Hajj is in the same place, so they look very similar. But look at the results. Look at the results. There is a version that took few dozens of people, transformed them completely, build the most successful movement of change in history through human efforts, no miracles whatsoever, and turn these people to change the world in one generation, and the champions of a great civilization. And look at the versions that are being embraced by more than 1.5 billion, who are irrelevant. Their contribution is nothing, and most of the time will contribute in a negative way. So can you believe that this is the same? If you have an engine of a car that does not exceed 40 miles per hour, another car that can go 20 miles per hour, can you accept that these are same car or the same engine inside them?
Well, Malik ibn Abi mentioned, I don't want to take lots of times maybe, but Malik ibn Abi mentioned the Insar al-Intidhar, which is the people who are waiting, always waiting. So we are waiting for something to happen. We're waiting for Mahdi. We're waiting for. So it's just there is the problem is that there's a set of ideas that motivate Muslims to be far from the overarching goals like Adil or Hurriya or the major things that Quran brought to us, to something else. And that came, I think, because of every major catastrophe that happened. The first one is the dictatorship. Dictatorship was the worst thing happened to Muslims. Every major thing like that will leave shadow, and that shadow, it could be like the ideas of just waiting, or they call it irja, aqidat al-irja, which is will something happen, okay, we will leave it for the future, or we'll leave it for Yawm al-Qiyamah. We cannot do anything about it. That's really killing the Muslims. There's a lot of ideas. Stop the rule of intellect in Muslims. That's why we are always thinking of, okay, you will see a dentist or maybe a doctor or somebody, And he will think of alamat al-sughra, alamat minor signs, and leaving the major things of Islam to smaller things. I mean, I take sometimes my kids to classes taught by some mashayikh, and the only thing they teaching is ad-Dajjal, whatever, Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. So my kids come back with these stories, and I start telling them, okay, let us think about that, because one sheikh told them Ya'juj wa Ma'juj will drill in from inside the earth and come outside. What's this? What's this? I mean, but there is good signs. Alhamdulillah, there is people start thinking, and but it's gonna take some time. Allah.
There is some good signs. There is some awakening happening. Unfortunately, those who are championing this, they have very small microphones compared to the big microphones that the traditional shuyukh have in the satellite TV, on a well-sponsored and well-funded websites and Facebook pages and YouTube pages. That's very unfortunate. And sometimes we only have ourselves to blame. We only have ourselves to blame because we're still continuing a major problem that when we find a good message or a good leader, we don't invest in it, even though it does not happen every now and then. And we have seen throughout our history a lot of missed opportunities because of this. A lot of missed opportunities. There are some scholars we only figured them out after they died, and some reformers like Malik ibn Nabi, for example, he did not really get the attention when he was living, and others. We're still doing that. And by the way, this is, unless we fix this mess of leadership in the Muslim mind, and we revive this culture, and we start celebrating it, not be afraid of leader, because leader for us is going to become a dictator, so we don't want it. Let's continue to be leaderless, because we have seen always leader means dictator. So we'd better remain leaderless. That's totally wrong. So we're going to have to learn, when we find something like this, to rally around it, and then grow it and promote it and strengthen it, so that we can clear this tremendous damage that is not even in the past. It's continuing. It's continuing. Go to any Muslim country, you find the well-funded organizations who are promoting this nonsense until now and raising generations who think this way. Why? Because you have channels and funds and endowments and well-paid scholars, etc., who are just dedicated by doing lectures and recording all the time. So the damages did not even stop. So we're not even containing or controlling the damage. We are racing against the clock to do something to prevent this mess from continuing. So I can't really emphasize more that Brother Muhammad mentioned dictatorship, and I always say two major turning point in the history of Muslim that brought us to this point. It is the transition from leadership by consent into dynasty, and it is the decision to stop ijtihad. Political stagnation plus intellectual stagnation, you get what you see. And political stagnation means no freedom, and society is suppressed, and the minds are suppressed. You add to it intellectual stagnation, you're not going to get better product than what you see. And it's a two turning points, and both of them were done in a very naive way. One is when Muslims, especially Muslim scholars, unfortunately, they thought that they trade their freedom for stability. And of course, you know the famous statement that those who trade their freedom for safety or security, they got neither, or whatever. Same happened at that time. And then they wanted to protect this religion, so they decided to freeze it, put it in the freezer so that it doesn't spoil. I don't know who told them that Islam is a food, to put it in the freezer. When you put it in the freezer, actually it backfired. The bad ijtihad that they wanted to stop thrived because you have no control over it. But the good ijtihad is the one that you froze. So that's, you ended up in this situation. And I want to emphasize something, by the way, أن لا تعبدوا إلا الله, because this concept of following blindly, the Quran and this religion came to free people from any servitude or from any slavery, from any type of slavery. Why? Because if you think about it, you either worship Allah alone or you're going to end up worshiping people. One way or another. You worship money, it's going to lead you to worship the one who has money. You worship anything that you become, you worship clergy, you worship. It is either, this is black and white. It's either or. It's either freedom completely from any type of slavery, that nobody can enslave you. Nobody can control your mind or control your personality, etc. Why? Because you decided to be servant of Allah. Either this, or if this is not the case, then one way or another, you're going to end up worshiping people. So that statement, أَلَّا نَعْبُدَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, أَلَّا نَعْبُدَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, that's a state declaration of freedom. That I'm free of anything. Nobody can control me. Nobody can blackmail me. Nobody can twist my arm. Nobody can intimidate me, because I am someone who's free, totally free. That's the kind of Muslims that we want to produce. Unfortunately, we are not nowhere close. And remember in Surah Al-A'raf, يَضَعْ عَنْكُمْ إِسْرَكُمْ وَالْأَغْلَالَ الَّتِي كَانَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ. The messenger came to break the chains that are holding you back, that are preventing you from excelling and from thriving. These ideas that Brother Muhammad mentioned, the idea that cripple your mind and make you have a tunnel vision, and you see can be easily confused. These are the ones, this message come to clear your mind from all of this, from all superstition, from all things that makes you complacent, things that makes you wait. By the way, people don't wait only for Mahdi or Masih or no. There are people who are waiting for a leader now to come and lead them, Za'im. And even this is Za'im Mukhallas, the leader who's gonna free us and fulfill all our dreams. Yani, let's wait for him to come. Yani, he's not gonna come. There is no such thing. Yani, it's if you really want to thrive, you have to have the will and start resisting and start charting the course, and leadership will emerge. But don't wait for it to come from the middle of nowhere. Yeah. So until now, not only religiously, even politically, we still have that idea. There are people who dream. They think they want to see another whatever, Nasser or whatever. When you want to see someone who is so popular and so, but they don't even ask themselves, what did they achieve? Yani? I mean, some of them, they led to major disasters. Yani. And still they were almost worshipped. Yani. To tell you how, well, sometimes people mention this example. They say Churchill led the British against the German and saved Britain yani, against the German occupation with his leadership. It's a great leader, yani. One of the very exceptional leader. Yani. Churchill, after the end of the war, he ran for office and he lost the election. First of all, we never have seen songs about Churchill. Yani. That's only us. Yani. We have never seen people start making songs that about Churchill. Yani. You are this and you are that, and without you we're gonna die, and we're gonna nifdik بالروح وبالدم. All of this nonsense did not happen. Yani. But forget about this. Someone with that achievement, which was miraculous achievement. The people, the citizen decided, their awareness, that he was probably a great leader for the war, but now in the rebuilding, we need somebody else. Compare that to Nasser in Egypt. He lost a war in a disastrous way. It's a very humiliating. 1967 is very humiliating, probably unprecedented in history. And in 6 days, you're totally destroyed and completely. Probably if they wanted to occupy Cairo and Damascus, they would have occupied everything again. And then people will come to the street, ask him to stay, not to leave them like orphans. And then when he goes to Khartoum, he was taken with his car. He was lifted with the car. And the Time magazine has in its cover page, they have this famous statement say, "Hail the conqueror," يعني حي على الفاتح ولا حي الفاتح, and they cross the conqueror and say, "Hail the loser." But these people, they are ready to praise someone who lost a war, and to that extent, and still continue with us. We're still waiting for that magic leader who will, in few days or a few weeks or months, he will fix all of this.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Suhail.
Walaikum salam.
Sorry,
Alaikum.
first for interrupting you before. I didn't get the concept of mutawafika. I didn't understand very well the meaning.
Mutawafika from death, that Allah will take him up, but didn't say how.
Okay, and then
it was translated that he was not killed, he was not crucified. Allah took him up, took him back to him.
Okay, and then I wanted to say, okay, sorry. I wanted to add on the issue of leadership. Like you say, unfortunately we are in a leaderless vacuum, and when we look at the most important institution is our family, and because a lot of us are coming from these messed societies, and we keep replicating the same pathologies to our parenting and upbringing, and unfortunately we because of lack of this community support and institution that can kind of you can run to for social or like empowerment or transformation or trust, So in the end, of course, we are not living in an island, so you tend up feeling isolated, and the parents are maybe like you hear a lot of breakdown in the families, so the kids are lost. So like all these resources we are losing, and unfortunately we don't have a direction until now. Sometimes I feel like we haven't kind of come up to a way of finding on how we can get solutions to this, because in as much as it's a personal struggle that every one of us has to take, but then you see it happening, and we are losing power. Human power is the most important investment you can put on. And our kids are losing hope, and when they go to our institutions, some of them are not supportive. So I mean, how long should we stay? How long can it take?
How long it's gonna take? It's a long journey. You pointed to something very important. I emphasized a lot. I even made a series of khutbah one time about the family. We are still in that vicious cycle of families being formed haphazardly. Children are raised haphazardly to go on and form families haphazardly. Until now, we still have, with some exceptions, of course, there is always exceptions, but in the general trend, we don't have premarital counseling that is widespread. We don't have spouses who read before marriage. We don't have parents who read to raise their children. Everybody's learning on the job, and it's a total mess. I can tell you it's a total mess. Yes, we are hiding it because of the pride, and we have this very high pride that we always want to appear that everything is under control and everything is fine. But a lot of time you see families breaking up after years and years of everybody thinking they are the happiest family on earth. Yeah. So it's a vicious cycle, and that's the institution where we produce the most precious thing and the most valuable thing, which is the human resources, as you mentioned. And it is still, when we build the business, we are much more careful. When we start a business, when we do a business plan and we study the market and etc., because we're very careful to invest our money. But when we start a family, we started just haphazardly. And the numbers are alarming. In the Muslim world, the numbers of divorce and broken families and children single, they are alarming. We're reaching levels, we're competing with the worst societies on earth, even though this religion has sanctified almost this institution of family. Again, it's one of those things that we did exactly the opposite of what we were asked to do. The focus of Islam on the family was meant so that we take it very seriously. Yes, it did not tell us about premarital counseling, etc., but when it focuses on it so much, it means that it has to be taken very, very seriously. And it is about time to try to start breaking that cycle. Everybody, wherever you are, even if you are at the level of raising grandchildren, wherever you are, try to break that cycle. If you are about to get married, please do it right. Go and read about spousal relationship, educate yourself, go and seek premarital counseling, and do it right. Do it right in terms of compatibility and etc. Talking openly before marriage so that there will be no surprises after that, because most things happens because of that surprises. And really encourage you to if those series are available, to listen to them. The series of khutbah, because it's a series of several khutbah. And then if you are already married, make sure that you read about raising children before finding yourself learning on the job. Let's all try to start this effort of breaking that vicious cycle, because it's crippling us.
جزاك الله خير. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله
بارك الله
وبركاته.
فيك. جزاك الله خير. Thank you, Sheikh, على هذه الخطبة. So just I want to add something really small about the post ending something. So this kind of idea is actually as Abdul Masiri he mentioned. He said this kind of materialism in our thinking. So we want to take everything as so مخلص or نهاية الزمان or نهاية التاريخ. This kind of idea is actually in our mind by materialism. So الفكرة المادية التي فيها. He mentioned that. So and the thing that is really strange to be relevant to our thinking as a Muslims, that let's take the what's called the story of Maryam عليه السلام. فأجاءها المخاض إلى جذع النخلة. وبعد ذلك يعني in that situation of weakness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala recommend her to what's called to move the palm tree, the trunk of palm tree. So
that's
situation, in that situation of weaknesses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even he sent already malaika to her. He gave her the rizq, so he show her some miracle things in front of her eyes. But in that situation, for feeding herself, she has to make effort. She has to make something. She has even shaking something. So
that's for us, Sheikh. The lesson for us. It's not for Maryam.
Yes, exactly.
Allah is teaching us through that incident.
Exactly, exactly. The things I'm thinking about Isa ibn Maryam والمخلص and نهاية الزمان, and we always we asking for somebody, he doesn't came yet. So it's kind of ولكن I think this thought is basically implemented in Jewish what's called الكالتشر التوراة موجودة فيها المخلص، قضية المخلص وعودة عيسى ابن مريم عليه السلام والمهدي المنتظر، يعني هذه القصص. But the second thing, why our institution they spread this kind of story, because it's really attractable.
I told you
Because
historically.
it's really attractable to the children. Yeah, historically.
No.
So for story.
Historically, because of rulers, and now because they are very convenient and very attractive to listen to hear stories.
Exactly.
They look very interesting. I mean, we turned religion into stories.
Exactly. هدانا الله وإن شاء الله. بارك الله فيك.
إن شاء الله.
جزاك الله
جزاك الله كل خير دكتور
شكراً.
سهيل، ان شاء الله
وإياكم إن شاء
see you next Sunday ان شاء الله.
شكرا.